He's saying this actually works. And it's very, very important that we talk about this. I did some checking, and I'm sure you know far more about this than I ever will, but the situation with students in Nepal. The #1 cause of female deaths among 15 to 49-year-olds in Nepal is suicide. Depression among university undergrads, and this particular study was in Pokhara, 38.2%. That is huge. And I don't know why. There's a lot of psychology studies coming out of Pokhara. It just, maybe there's some people there who are really into it, but a lot of the research that I was able to find. And we know what people need is improved social support and self-esteem. Okay, and in a minute, I'm going to give you the link so you can get the resources that I'm quoting here. I came across this study. This is from Japan, where I live. I couldn't find anything about this for Nepal, but having a best friend is the largest factor in depression and might have a greater influence than family. And that blew me away. Just having a good friend. And so many of us are teaching university, and, you know, when we're dealing with first-year students, some of them are, you know, from the country, they go to the city for university, they don't have any friends there. That's really important for what we do as teachers. Now, if you're interested, I'm part of a group called Mind, Brain, and Education Special Interest Group in here in Japan, and we publish a monthly magazine called Think Tank. And in December of 2020, we did an issue on depression. Go to the link mindbraineducation.org, and you can download that for free. There's another issue a few months earlier on positive psychology, and you can, and it's all free. And final thing to start with, happy students build relationships better. Okay, now all of these are important things for us as teachers. Now, what is positive psychology? Well, one definition is that positive psychology is the flourishing or optimal functioning of people, groups, and institutions. This is Shelley Gable and Jonathan Haidt. A definition I like better is from Chris Peterson, who was at University of Michigan, who puts it in everyday terms. He says, positive psychology is the study of it lost a slide. It's what makes life most worth living. That's what we're talking about. What makes your life good? Let's study how. Let's study why. Now, what positive psychology is not? Number one, it is not the caption disappeared. It should say it is not happyology. It's not Disneyland. It's not just thinking nice thoughts. There we go. Hi. It is also not the power of positive thinking. That is a philosophy. It's not science. Positive psychology is science. It is based on hard research. It's based on peer review. It's based on replicated experiments. It's based on everything you expect of science, okay? And one other thing before we get into what you can do in your classroom, I was doing a workshop on positive psychology just a few weeks ago, and somebody said, Mark, you said it's not happyology. You said it's not Disneyland, but you were only talking about happy stuff. What happens to negative things? And that's part of positive psychology, is recognizing not everything is wonderful. Okay, so I went back and wrote a new web page. It's at, oh, first of all, here's the URL you want, eltandhappiness.com. ELT, English Language Teaching, and happiness.com. And if you go there, the first link on the left says Nepal Science of Happiness. That's the webpage for this workshop, and it has all the links to activities, but also to research. Okay, I added a new web page. Okay, Talbot Ben Shahar, who was at Harvard, said, you know, the only people who don't experience pain are psychopaths and the dead. Take your pick. We all have negative things in our life. So I made a web page called This Ain't Happyology, using positive psychology when life sucks the energy and joy out of your job, your soul, etc. And there are over 20 science-based strategies to deal with negatives. Okay, ranging from easy things, take a walk, to heavier things like depression. So please have a look at that page to deal with some of the things that aren't great. But in class, I like to focus on, you know, things that are good, things that will make you, my students, happy, things that will make me happy in the interaction. And now I know your new academic year doesn't start for 2 or 3 months. My academic year starts tomorrow morning. Tomorrow is my first day of class. Yeah, so I'm going to show you a kind of unusual way that I'm planning to open my class tomorrow. This was something that was floating around on Facebook about a month ago. There was this series of things. It was just called, What Happens When You Say You're Beautiful? Yeah, and it showed the pictures. And I'm just going to show you a couple of them. This is how this is what I'm going to use, not the very first thing in class, but I want the students to start learning each other's names. So I'm going to start by pointing out, your smile is beautiful, regardless of anything else. And I'll say, let's smile together and learn each other's names. And I was hoping to do breakout rooms, but actually I'm afraid to try breakout rooms right now because we've been having the technology problems. So let me just show you this. The PowerPoint is on the web page. You can download it and use it in your classes. But what you start off with, say, what happens when somebody says, you're beautiful? And I'd like to sincerely say that to you right now. You're beautiful. And notice what you do. Then can you hold your fingers like a camera lens? Okay. And for all of these people, just say your beautiful name and see what they do. Pretend to take a picture. So I'm going to start with Mai, and I'm saying, you're beautiful, Mai. And Mai says, thank you. Okay, except I don't know what's happening in Nepal. In Japan, we're all wearing masks. So if you're wearing masks, I can still say, you've got beautiful eyes. And thank you. And then I go through the list of the whole, a few slides. Okay, you're beautiful, Nina. Thank you. You're beautiful, Emmy. Thank you. You're beautiful, Jojo. Thank you. You're beautiful, Kate. Thank you. You're beautiful, Nick. And then that's the sample. And then I ask my students to stand up, walk around, get to know everybody. They make name cards with their full name on one side, but just their first name, whatever they want people to call them on the other side. They hold it up and go up and say, your beautiful name, and talk to each other, and you're going to see a lot of smiles. And then, how many names can you remember? Okay, now I teach at a women's university that basically has a very positive atmosphere. And I showed this PowerPoint to some colleagues and they said, great, I want to use it too. But then I showed it to some colleagues at other universities who were not quite sure that that fits the culture of their school. So I made a different version that's not just you're beautiful, but where we say other things. Yeah, say things, just compliments, like you have a beautiful smile, Mai, or the mask that I mentioned. Nice scarf. You always make me laugh, Jojo. Thank you. You got beautiful hair. You can say any kind of compliment. And please notice, your beautiful is not just about physical beauty. It's about smiles, but it's also about soul. It's about their inner beauty, which I hope will come out in your English class because it's part of it. Now, a little more specifically about positive psychology. I first heard about positive psychology about 17 years ago when Time magazine did a special issue called The Science of Happiness. That's where I stole the title from. And in that issue, Sonia Lubomirsky, who is a researcher at University of California, Riverside, had an article where she identified 8 behaviors, cognitive thinking behaviors, but also physical behaviors of happy, well-adjusted, happy people, right? And 8 behaviors, that gives me a dictation. So I made an activity. You can download this on the website to use, or on the webpage to use for your class. But just so, the print here is too small, so I'll blow it up a little bit. Can you guess what goes in the blanks? And because of the technology, we have to have mics off. So I'll just give you some answers. Do kind things. Kindness really does make you happy. Say something to people who help you. Say thank you. And I'll just go quickly through this and give you the answers. 8 things that happy people do. Number 1, remember good things in your life. Yeah, when you were a kid, your mom probably said something like, count your blessings. Well, from a science point of view, your mom was correct. Count your blessings. Happy people notice good things. Happy people take the time to say thank you. Happy people do kind things for each other. You see, thanking people, doing kind things. We're trying to build this positive spiral. Happy people take time for friends and family. Happy people forgive. And this is the only new vocabulary in this whole dictation for some students. So actually on the handout, one version of the handout has the word forgive in Nepali, in case your students don't know it. But many of us teach teenagers, right? And do your teenage students do stupid things? Yeah, probably because they're teenagers. And it's not totally their fault, okay? Because the teenage brain is not completely developed yet. I mean, for example, the amygdala, the part of the brain that handles emotion, like the fight, flight, or freeze response, that's totally developed by age 15. So that means a 15-year-old can get as angry as he or she will ever get in their lives. But the prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain, the decision maker, the executive part, isn't fully developed till mid-20s. And that's one reason teenagers do stupid stuff. The brain's not developed, so they will make some bad choices. So I tell my students, learn from it, but don't beat yourself up. When you do something dumb, forgive yourself. Learn so you don't do it again, but forgive yourself counts. And notice good things as they happen. This is mindfulness. And deal with problems. And I don't know, one slide just disappeared, but it's also physical activity makes a difference. And when I saw this list, this is from, as I said, Sonia Lubomirsky, University of California, Riverside, I thought, wow, you know, as language teachers, we're my PowerPoint just disappeared. Let me see if I can go back to it. Screen sharing is turned off. Can we get it back? I've got no screen sharing. Can we either make me the host again or?
Yeah, we can do it. Doctor, can you please give host to Professor Marc? Ashok sir? Okay, I can give you now. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, while we're waiting for the screen share, memory test. Can you remember all 8 things? Okay, I'm the host again, so I think I can share. And we've got it. And, oh, excellent, it came back to the right slide. Okay, what I started to say is yeah, these are things we're doing anyway as language teachers. Yeah, like topics, grammar, functions. So it gives us a chance to do something so much deeper than your standard, who's your favorite movie star, what's your favorite sport. Now, an activity, actually, we're not going to do it because of the breakout rooms, but I'm going to explain it. Can I ask you to take about 1 minute or a little less? How many question words can you write down in English? Now, I know you already know them, but with your students, by just taking the minute to write them, they'll remember and therefore use them. So take about 30 seconds. How many question words can you write down? And most of you probably started with the WH words, who, what, when, where. And that's great. That's where most people start. But any kind of question words are okay. So is, are, do, did, whatever. And then I get to the question. This is a savoring activity, right? Which involves some of the things that we talked about, noticing good things in your life, remembering good things, and anticipation, right? And I do something called 3 minutes for positivity. And what I have for the students, and I have for you, is a list of 17 topics. And we'll use a sample example. What was an experience you really enjoyed? Okay? And I give them 1 minute of think time. Time to think, what do I want to say? How am I going to say it? So, what is an experience you really enjoyed? And then I put them in pairs. And in pairs, they take 2 minutes. A speaks for 1 minute, and then B asks questions. And then B speaks for 1 minute, A asks questions. And this works so much better if you actually do it. Now, I can't put you in pairs, but I'm going to give you about 45 seconds. And can I encourage you, ideally out loud, what is an experience you really enjoyed? And I know it seems crazy to do it out loud, especially if you're alone. And it seems even crazier if you're not alone. But hi, 45 seconds. What's an experience you really enjoyed? And students check the question words they use. Now, if you actually did that, if you actually talked about at least in your mind, and especially if you did it out loud, you probably feel really good right now, because just talking about it, you are re-experiencing that happy time. Yeah, and positivity is not about having more and more and more and more positive experiences. It's having many, many experiences of positive emotion. And just thinking about them, re-experience them allows you to do it again. There's also something that's very important in terms of language learning. The WH questions is a discourse strategy. It keeps the conversation going, and that's something students need to learn how to do. But from a positive psychology point of view, it also lets us do active constructive responses. Now, what do we mean by that? The way you answer makes a difference in your partner. Let's say, for example, your partner just got a job promotion. And I don't know if partner means English class, your partner in a pair work, or if it means your life partner, your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. But somebody just got a job promotion and they say, hey, I got promoted. You want to do an active constructive response. And that would be something like, oh, you got a promotion. Great. Tell me all about it. What are you going to be doing? How did you hear about it? Who told you? When does it start? You're asking the kind of questions that allow the speaker to go deeper into the emotion. Unfortunately, many of us do passive constructive responses. Hey, I got a promotion. Wow, great. That's nice. Or even worse, passive destructive responses. That's nice. What's for dinner? Or worse yet, active destructive responses. Oh, now you're going to be even busier than you are now. Okay. Now on the handout, which you can get at the web page I told you, there are 16 different questions. I use one a week just as a warm-up. 3 minutes. It's a fluency activity that lets them get deeper into positive emotion. One thing I wanted to bring up, and I want to make sure that we get to this, even if we're short of time and technology, is time confetti. Right? I learned about this from Dr. Laurie Santos, who's teaches at Yale. She teaches actually the biggest class at Yale University, which is a positive psychology class. She also hosts the Happiness Lab, which is a great podcast. But she says people feel time famished. Yeah, we feel there's not enough time. Now, here's what's interesting. We actually have more free time now than we did a few years ago. Dr. Santos calls it 5 or 10 years ago. Another source, somebody named Catherine Price, who wrote a book called The Power of Fun, says 50 years ago. The point is, we actually have more free time. It's just that it's broken into little bits. It's like 3 minutes till your next Zoom class, 5 minutes before that meeting, 10 minutes until you have something else to do. And these little pieces of time we don't use. So I would ask, what could you do in 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes? And I give my students little cards to write down their ideas, because I want to keep it so the next time they have 5 minutes before the next class starts, 10 minutes before lunch, they can actually do something with the time. Oh, and keep in mind, this is about happiness. It's not about productivity. You're not trying to be more productive. What could you do in 3 to 10 minutes that you would enjoy? And I suggest go for a walk outside. Yeah. Have a cup of soup. Where I live, it's still kind of, it's spring, but it's still pretty cold. So a hot cup of soup on a cold day is great. And in a few weeks, I just timed it a few days ago. From my office to the nearest ice cream machine takes 2 minutes and 45 seconds, which means in less than 3 minutes, I can walk to the ice cream machine, get an ice cream, bring it back and eat it. And it's a great use of just a few minutes. Listen to a song that'll make you happy, and stretch or exercise. Do something to move your body. The point is, we can use these tiny pieces of time. Now, if we had breakout rooms, I would put you in pairs and have you think and together, but we don't have breakout rooms. But can I still ask you to take 1 minute? What could you do in 3 to 5 minutes that would make you happy? Okay, 1 minute of thinking time. Please write down your answers. Now, I told you I was going to give you some things for your life as well as your class. These next two you probably can't do in class, but the things I try to do, I mean, most of the ideas that I've mentioned, you can do both in class and in real life. Next two are just real life. The supermarket near my house, when I walk in, just to the left, there's a bakery. And even if I don't need to buy bread, I walk through the bakery and just inhale, breathe deeply, because that smell of fresh bread is so good. And on the other side, left-hand side's the bakery. On the right-hand side, there's a flower shop. And I go to the flower shop and just inhale to smell the fresh, wonderful smell of flowers. Little things. Takes just a few seconds, but I do that help my mood. Okay. Some other things you can do. And what we'll do is we're going to have time for some discussion. So I'll ask you to share your ideas then. Okay. But something that's easy to do is just smile. And this is so simple, but most people don't take the time to notice. Can I ask you, and it's good, your camera's off, so even if you look silly, nobody's going to know. Can I ask you to make a big smile, close your eyes, and I'm just going to be quiet for about 30 seconds, and please notice the feeling. For me, it happens by my heart, but I don't know where it's going to happen in your body. But please, a big smile, 30 seconds, go. Great. And I can see a few people smiling. And did you notice, could you feel it physically? Yeah, that is, what happened to the slide? That is endorphin, the brain chemical that's released in your brain and your body when you smile. And you can control it just by smiling. Something else I teach my students in is deep breathing. And I'm guessing, I don't know this, but since Nepal is right next to India, probably some of you do yoga. And so if you do, and good, somebody's nodding, so thank you for that. I teach my students deep breathing, which is yoga breathing. And think about your students, if they don't do this anyway, before tests, especially big tests, before job interviews. My students, I teach in a business department. My students practice doing business presentations. Everybody is nervous before presentations, right? I teach my students to do yoga breathing, deep breathing, before a presentation to control their minds. And I teach them out through the mouth, in through the nose. And those of you who do yoga know about this. Your mouth is bigger than your nostrils and the holes in your nose. So when you breathe out through the mouth, you exchange more old, dead air. Your lungs hold 2.5 liters of air. Every time you breathe, it's 350 to 500 cc's. So most of the air in your lungs is old. So this is a way to get more fresh air. And I have them breathe out for the count of 6, hold for the count of 5, in for the count of 4, hold for the count of 5. Yeah, I want them to do this slowly. Let's just do this 2 or 3 times together. I'll breathe really loud so you can follow me. This is best if you close your eyes and breathe out. Hold. In. Hold. Now, those of you who already do yoga probably thought, well, that's easy. Those of you who don't might feel a little dizzy because if you don't do this regularly, you're just not used to it. So I teach my students, please practice this before that presentation, before that test, because it's useful. It allows you to control what you're doing. Couple more points, and then we're going to get to time to discuss. Something that I strongly don't recommend. Oh, no, something before that. Exercise, right? 2 years ago in Japan, when COVID first hit, the pandemic first hit, none of us knew how to teach online. This guy's name is Jose Cruz, and he's one of the people who started online teaching Japan. And most of us, when students are in breakout rooms and Zoom, most of us are jumping back and forth between rooms. Jose doesn't. Jose does burpees, physical exercises, and that's what he does when the students are in breakout room. And any kind of physical exercise is actually a very, very good idea. And especially, you all have been sitting down for 45 minutes now, at least, right? And here's the problem. When we sit for 20 minutes, blood goes down to our feet, lower legs, and buttocks, and away from the brain. Now, when you move for 20 seconds, there's a 15% increase of blood and therefore oxygen to the brain. So I do what are called energy breaks. And energy breaks are short activities, 5 minutes or less, that involve physical activity plus a little brain science. Okay? And what I would like to ask you to do Well, first of all, let me introduce your teacher. This is Dr. Wendy Suzuki. She's a neuroscientist at New York University, and she studies the brain. Specifically, she started out by studying the hippocampus, which controls memory, long-term memory, okay? And she moved from there to studying physical activity because of what that does for memory. And this is 1 minute of her TED Talk, and she's going to teach you what to do. But can I ask you to stand up? And I know you feel silly standing up if you're alone, but I'm going to. If your camera's on, I know whether you're standing up or not. And Dr. Suzuki is going to ask you to stand up. But here's why it's important. Okay, a single workout, single physical workout increases dopamine. That's the kind of the magic chemical that does everything, including memory, motivation, focus. Okay. Serotonin, which is called the happiness chemical, and noradrenaline, which improves mood. That's a single exercise session. It increases your ability to shift and focus attention, and it increases reaction time. Now, long-term workout, ideally 3 times a week, we'll go to the next slide. It protects the brain, the hippocampus especially, which I mentioned, memory, and the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of your brain, from aging. Okay, so that was an energy break. Go to the web page. I'm going to give you the URL again, and I've got 16 of them. So you can download, put on your computer, using class. Last thing, you know, I'm saying, what can you do in 2 or 3 minutes? Everybody says, oh, check my mail. No. There are a lot of reasons not to do it. Number one, why are you checking your mail all the time? Mostly it's FOMA, fear of missing out. Yeah, we're just afraid we're going to miss something. Please understand, the people who make your phone make their money by interrupting you with distracting activity. That's why Mark Zuckerberg is so rich. That's why all of these tech execs make $1 zillion by interrupting you. Don't check your phone. Distracting activities, it's harder for your brain to go back to what you want to be working on, right? And something else, and I don't know how to say this, but I know how to say this. I don't know how to say it nicely. You are not the president. You are not Batman or Wonder Woman or Superman. What I'm saying is, we are not that important, okay? The president has somebody checking his news every minute, because he is. And Batman has Commissioner Gordon to show the bat light, right? We're not that important. If we don't get the new news for an hour or 2 hours or 10 hours, it doesn't really matter. Put your phone away and instead focus on what you're doing. Focus on your own happiness. Focus on your students' happiness. And we're all better off that way. And so, question and maybe answers. Let me, before I turn off the PowerPoint, let me go to the next slide. Please be sure you have this URL, eltnhappiness.com. Go to the top left and check the one that starts Nepal, and it's the Science of Happiness. And that has links to everything else, all the activities, all of the science, etc. Now let me cancel. Well, let me ask. The clock says I have 5 minutes, but should I stop early so that you, because I know you lost time before with technology, or can we discuss for 5 minutes?
Yes, sir. We can discuss for 5 minutes.
Okay, only 5 minutes, so don't hesitate. Please either, I don't know if you can turn on your mics or not. You can either say what you want to say or, first of all, I'm going to do one thing. A bunch of URLs I put in chat, but let me put them there again.
They can turn on their microphone.
They can turn, okay, hi. Either questions or comments or your idea what to do with time confetti, what to do with your 5 minutes. Hi, anybody?
Sir, I do have a question. May I?
Oh, yes, please.
Actually, the positive psychology or happiness for the teacher is similar to teachers' well-being as well, right, sir?
It is, yeah. Positive well-being is one part of positive psychology.
All right. So, in case of creating well-being or happiness among the teachers, when they face the different sort of circumstances, maybe they have the social responsibilities or school responsibilities and others. So how can we overcome the different dimensions like social others, to come to this position where we can create happiness for self?
Right. Great question. We have two wonderful aspects of that. Number one, how do we deal with the social responsibilities? We're teachers. We're not entertainers. We're not there for that. And also the teacher's own happiness is really, really important. And it's hard your students aren't going to be happy if you're unhappy. So what I would suggest is try to do very short positive psychology activities regularly. I mentioned that 3 minutes for positivity. If you can find 3 minutes or 5 minutes in your class at the beginning or as a cool down at the end of class, every class or every week, that's going to be much better off than, for example, doing a unit where you study happiness for 1 week or one, period. Right? Do a lot of little things where you're actually doing it. And number two, don't expect Disneyland. And so I told you, I made that new webpage, It Ain't Happyology. One of the reasons I did that is I mentioned Nepal has some very high depression rates. I live in Japan. Japan has very high depression rates too. Basically, what happens is Nepal is a test-oriented country, right? Your students have to, they're under pressure to do well. Yeah. And every culture where that's true, there's depression. So give them some tools to deal with depression. And I bring up depression just to make sure that it's okay, they feel okay talking about it. And, please look at that It Ain't Happyology page. There are, like I said, the slide said 20. There are now about 25 different techniques you can use to deal with negative emotion, because they're important. And we should not pretend everything is sweetness and light all the time. I'm sorry, I'm out of time. On the webpage, you've got my email address. So if you have questions, please email me. Please remember, tomorrow is my first day of class, so it might be a couple of days before I get back to you, but I will get back to you. Okay, thank you all for your time. Thank you, everybody involved in this conference, but especially Janak, who I met, how many years ago now? A few years ago in Kathmandu. And what
7 or 8 years ago, I think.
pardon?
It's 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah. And I remember, because it took me, coming from Japan, it took me hours to get to Nepal by airplane, but it took you many, many hours to get to Kathmandu by bus.
Yes.
And it was like the same amount of time. So I remember you from that. And anyway, thank you all for your time. Best wishes and great happiness in your teaching. Thank you.
Professor Marc, we're quite glad to see you here with us. I know we have, thought without language to share how happy we are to see your sharing on positive psychology. So it has really made us thrilled and excited as well. We would like to thank you on behalf of Far Western University and from the entire team that has been working around for this conference with the hammer and tongue. Thank you so much. Hope to see you again with us. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I hope so. Thank you so much.